Today, the third lecture of 100 Urantia Core Truth is the Universal Father. I'm going to give a lecture on Universal Father based on Urantia paper 1 through 5. This image depicts a cosmic nebula with brilliant stars and galaxies representing the vast universe and divine light rays. This slide introduces the topic of the Universal Father and the discovery of God as the greatest experience based on the Urantia Book, paper 1 through 5. The Urantia Book is a spiritual and philosophical text that provides a comprehensive understanding of the nature of God, the universe, and humanity's place within it. The presentation will explore the concept of the Universal Father, the supreme and eternal source of all existence, and how discovering this divine being can be the most profound experience for individuals. Key themes to address include the nature of God, the relationship between the Universal Father and creation, and the personal and transformative journey of discovering the divine. The Urantia Book emphasizes the importance of knowing God through personal experience, not just theological knowledge. This journey of discovering God is described as the greatest and most thrilling adventure of mortal humans. We don't create God, but rather embark on a journey to discover the God who is already there. This discovery begins in this life and continues until we reach paradise. There are three main ways humans seek to know God: the factual approaches of scientific inquiry, the semantic approach of philosophical contemplation, and the value approach of religious experience. When these three ways are integrated, we reach the most complete understanding of God. The key insight is that the desire for truth, beauty, and goodness are always the human goal is elevated towards God. God's presence is revealed to us in many ways, including through nature, our thought adjuster and spirit of truth, the divine sons, and the universal records. The Father reveals himself through his Spirit and personalizes himself through his Son. God is infinite and ultimately real, but our human perception of God is limited. We are currently in the stage of moving from understanding God through our material mind to recognizing God through spiritual insight. This translation allows us to perceive God on a deeper, more spiritual level. The Urantia Book refers to God as the Universal Father. This designation expresses the personal relationship aspect of God's nature. There are three key meanings of the Father designations. Source of creation. God is the creator of all personalities and connects directly with each of us through the thought adjuster. Relationship of love. God is not merely a creator, but one who desires a personal, loving relationship with us. God is love is the simplest and truest statement. Universal authority. God is the ultimate source of all reality, matter, mind, and spirit. However, this authority is exercised through love. It is important to distinguish between the statements God is love and love is God. God is greater than love. Love is just one of his most essential attributes. God is eternally certain, universal reality, holy, just, true, good, and beautiful. God's primordial nature includes infinity, one without limits, yet he willingly limits himself for creatures. Eternity, one without limits, yet he willingly limits himself for creatures. Eternity, one who transcends time, existing simultaneously in past, present, and future. Omnipresence, he is everywhere, yet personally dwells in paradise. There are three ways to understand God's nature. Theological, understanding God through doctrine. Philosophical, reasoning about why God is this way. Experiential, meeting God directly through faith. Ultimately, an experiential relationship with God is most important. God's perfection is what creature must gradually achieve. As Jesus commanded, "Be you perfect, even as your heavenly Father is perfect." God is love, the greatest reality of the universe. It is a universal love that is directed equally at all personal beings. God's love is personal. It is not just a general, impersonal love, but a love directed at each of us individually. God's love is active. It comes to us first before we even seek it. As we grow spiritually, we can experience God's love more abundantly. God's love does not destroy justice. Love and justice are perfectly integrated in God. Mercy is an expression of love that transcends justice. Justice is not called mechanical retribution, but the expression of God's perfect nature that ensures the fair operation of the universe. There are consequences of sin, but the purpose is not punishment, but restoration. God permits consequences for human growth. Mercy does not abolish justice. Mercy is love feeling what justice requires. The Urantia Book does not view Jesus' death as a sacrifice to appease an angry God. Jesus most perfectly revealed God's love, and that love was expressed on the cross. Love takes priority over justice. Justice does not lead love, but love perfects justice. God is present everywhere through the soul register, the spirit of truth, and divine supervision. He knows every thought and every action in the universe. But his omniscience does not violate human free will. God is omnipotent, but he does not do things contrary to his nature. He will not do unloving things. God has no limits, yet he willingly limits himself for relationship with his creature. God is the first and source of all reality. Everything comes from him and returns to him. He transcends time, yet loves and cares for his creature with time. God's nature does not change, but his love and mercy are always new. His immutability is not rigidity. God's universal rule operates through natural law, spiritual circuits, and divine providence. The universe is perfectly designed, but not yet completed. Evolution is part of the creation plan, and we humans participate in this process. Suffering can result from the consequences of natural law, but God leads creature to grow through this process. The thought register is the most amazing gift the Universal Father has given to humans. It is a fragment of God that literally dwells within each of us. The thought register is not created but comes directly from God himself. It begins to dwell within us when our moral consciousness awakens. The thought register is not personality itself, but becomes personalized when it fuses with us. It guides, encourages, and elevates us. but does not force or compel our free will. The thought adjuster's role is to lead us to higher thinking, facilitate our spiritual growth, harmonize God's will with our own, and help build our soul for spiritual survival. This divine presence within us always strives for what is ideal for us. Prayer is the human soul reaching out to God. It's how we communicate with the divine. There are two main types of prayer. Human prayer, asking for things, presenting our needs and desire to the Father. Spiritual prayer, aligning our will with God's, as Jesus taught us to pray, Thy will be done. Prayer doesn't change God, but changes the personal praying. It helps us grow spiritually. Worship is standing before the Creator with gratitude, awe, and love. It's different from prayer in that we are not seeking anything, just being in God's presence. There are stages of worship, from primitive fear to mature love, and the desire to know God for who He is, not just what He's done for us. The Urantia Book emphasizes the key doctrines between knowing God and knowing about God. Knowing about God refers to intellectual understanding, theology, and biblical knowledge, necessary but not sufficient. Knowing God refers to direct personal experience and relationship through the thought adjuster, worship, prayer, and living God's will. To personally come to know God, we must consciously accept the thought adjuster's guidance, practice truth, beauty, and goodness in our lives, express God's love by loving our neighbors, seek God's will in our daily choice. The best way to love God is to love our fellow humans. The Universal Father maintains a direct and personal relationship with all personal beings through special personality circuit. This means the Father knows me directly without any intermediary. My prayers and worship reach Him directly, and a fragment of the Father dwells within me through the thought adjuster. There are three divine circuits that binds the entire universe together: the Father's personality circuit, the Son's spiritual gravity circuit, and infinite spirit's mind circuit. No personal being can be completely disconnected from this universal connection. God always knows you. Faith is not blind belief, but a spiritual conviction of God's reality that goes beyond what reason can prove. Faith responds to the inner guidance of the thought adjusters and transcends the limits of evidence. Reason builds the foundation for faith, but faith takes us where reason cannot. There are three stages of faith: intellectual assent, emotional conviction, and volitional decision to practice God's will. Evidence for God's existence includes our inner moral consciousness, sensitivity to beauty, longing for truth, and experience of love. True faith is staking your entire being on the adventure of seeking God. Doing God's will is the greatest privilege and adventure for us as God's spiritual children. God's will is not an abstract command, but choosing love in concrete situation, pursuing truth, discovering beauty, and practicing goodness. It also means responding to the guidance of the inner thought adjuster. Jesus understood doing God's will not as simple obedience, but as perfect cooperation with God. For him, it was life itself. We can know God's will through prayer and meditation, seeking truth, community, and the guidance of our conscience awakened by thought adjuster. Ultimately, doing God's will is not just about keeping rules, but coming to want what the Father wants. The journey of moral ascension toward paradise is the greatest adventure for human beings. It begins on the local universe of Urantia, where the thought register takes up residence and the soul is formed through moral choices. After death, the ascender moves to the Morontia worlds, an intermediate stage between matter and spirit. Over 645 Morontia worlds, the ascender becomes increasingly one with the thought register and learns directly about the nature of Jesus, the Creator's Son. The journey then continues through super-universe, where the ascender receives judgment before the Ancient of Days, and acquires higher spiritual knowledge and abilities. The final stage is pilgrimage through the 1 billion perfect worlds of the central universe Habona, where the ascender comes to know God more perfectly at each stage, reaching spiritual perfection. The ultimate destination is standing before the presence of the Universal Father, completely fusing with the thought register to become one. The new ministry then begins as a final rider, descending to help other beings still ascending the path. This ride provides a high-level summary of core teachings covered in paper 1 to 5 of the Universal Father lecture. It gives a brief overview of key topics in each paper, including the nature of God, His attributes, His relationship with the universe and individuals, and the lore of the Eternal Son and the Trinity. These foundational concepts lay the groundwork for understanding the broader spiritual framework presented in the lecture. Highlighting this core teaching will help orient the audience and set the stage for the more detailed exploration to come. The goal is to provide a comprehensive yet concise introduction to the fundamental ideas about God and the spiritual reality that will be expanded upon throughout presentation. The purpose of life is to know and have a personal relationship with the Universal Father. The thought register, God presence within you, guides you through every noble thought and unselfish impulse. Each moral choice you make in this life shapes your soul and brings you closer to the Father. The journey to paradise is long, but the Father walks with you every step of the way. Doing God's will is life's greatest adventure and most sublime experiences.